In Part 3 of Chapter 19, we looked at non-value added costs that consume firm resources without benefiting the customer in terms of better quality or lower cost. In this section, we're going to look at two other ways that firms might reduce their non-value added costs: just-in-time inventory and total quality management. Traditional manufacturing is what's called a supply push system. Every morning, workers show up, and the firm has raw materials and it has machinery, so it starts producing goods, even though it doesn't actually have any customers for those goods. When the goods are completed, they're stored in the finished goods warehouse. This enables the firm to satisfy customers' demand for whatever goods they want whenever they want them. But there's a significant cost to carrying all that inventory. These costs include the cost of the warehouse, the cost of insurance on the warehouse and the goods that are in it, the cost of record keeping, and the cost of someone to drive a forklift around the warehouse to bring goods to the warehouse and to get the goods that the customers want. In addition, the firm runs the risk that the goods in the warehouse are going to become old and dusty or damaged or lose their popularity, in which case the firm will have wasted the materials, labor, and overhead that went into manufacturing them. The cost to carry inventory and any loss in the sales value of the unsold inventory are non-value-added costs because they use up firm resources but don't benefit the customers. Just-in-time is a different manufacturing philosophy. It's called a demand pull system because the firm doesn't make goods until it receives an order from a customer. Then the firm springs into action, gets the raw materials that it needs for that order, manufactures the goods, and as soon as they're done, sends the goods to the customer. This dramatically reduces the cost to carry inventory because the firm keeps little or no raw materials or finished goods on hand. It also reduces the chance that finished goods will become old and unsellable because the firm doesn't make goods unless they already have a customer who wants them. It also simplifies the firm's bookkeeping because the firm doesn't have to track raw materials and finished goods inventories. But the firm is still able to satisfy customer demand. Of course, this system requires the firm to have very good communication with its suppliers and its customers. So, a just-in-time management system means that a firm should only make goods when it receives a customer order. The firm keeps little or no inventories on hand. Instead, it orders raw materials as they are needed. But it requires workers to be very flexible because they don't know what kind of goods they'll be working on from one day to the next. The firm will combine direct labor and manufacturing overhead into conversion costs. And as soon as the goods are completed, they're shipped to the customer. Let's look at how costs flow through a just-in-time system. When the firm receives materials for a particular customer order, those materials go directly to the production floor, and the journal entry is a debit to an account called raw and in process, and a credit to accounts payable. The raw and in process account combines the dollar value of all of the firm's materials with its work in process. As the firm works on the goods for the customer order, it adds conversion costs to the raw and in process account with a debit to raw and in process and a credit to conversion costs using whatever method the firm has chosen to allocate these costs. As soon as the goods are done, they're sent to the customer, and their costs flow to cost of goods sold, with a debit increase to cost of goods sold and a credit decrease to raw and in process. Some firms choose to make a few extra units in case there are some defects in the units that they sent to their customer, or in case the customer wants a few more units. In that case, the extra units go to finished goods. Debit, increase finished goods, and credit, decrease raw materials and in process. When those extra units are sold, then they leave finished goods and go to the customer, and their costs are transferred to cost of goods sold with a debit to cost of goods sold and a credit to finished goods. So, which of these is not a benefit of just-in-time management? Think about it for a moment. Well, it can't be answer A, because just-in-time helps firms to respond quickly to changes in customer demand. And it can't be answer B, because just-in-time does lower the cost to carry inventory. And it can't be answer D, because the firm no longer needs a raw materials or finished goods warehouse, so there should be more space available for production. The correct answer is C. One of the weaknesses of just-in-time is that it depends on being able to get raw materials whenever it needs them. So if there's a disruption in the delivery of raw materials, it's going to slow down the firm's ability to fulfill customer orders. Which of these accounts is not used in a just-in-time system? Well, it can't be answer A because some firms do make extra units just in case there's a problem with some of the units that they sent to their customer. And it can't be answer B because just-in-time firms combine raw materials and work in process into a single account. And it can't be answer C because just-in-time firms combine direct labor and manufacturing overhead into conversion costs. The answer is C. Firms that use just-in-time don't have a separate work-in-process account. Another way that firms can reduce non-value-added costs is through quality management. So what is quality? That's a tricky question to answer because it depends on the kind of product we're thinking about. For example, you wouldn't expect the same level of quality in a paper cup as you would in a fine crystal goblet, but you would expect that the paper cup shouldn't leak. So generally speaking, a product or a service is considered to have quality if it meets or exceeds customers' expectations. That means that in order to determine the components of quality, a firm needs to know what customers care about. Quality standards may be set by government agencies or by industry standards, or they may be set by customer preferences. No firm wants to disappoint its customers. So when a firm is thinking about how much quality is enough, the answer is it depends. A firm certainly needs to have sufficient quality to satisfy any regulatory standards and satisfy its customers, but it doesn't necessarily want to spend more firm resources putting quality into its products or services than customers demand. There are two main categories of quality costs for a firm: conformance costs and non-conformance costs. Conformance costs are the costs that a firm incurs to put quality into its products or services. Firms have two types of conformance costs. Prevention costs include anything that the firm does before production to prevent defects from occurring, such as making sure that workers are trained or making sure that the machinery is set correctly. And appraisal costs include the cost of anything that the firm does during production to make sure that defects haven't occurred, like checking on products as they go through the production process to make sure that they've been done properly. By contrast, non-conformance costs are the costs that the firm incurs when it fails to have good quality. A firm may have two types of non-conformance costs: internal failure costs and external failure costs. Internal failure costs occur when the firm finds defects either during production or at the end of the production process, but before the goods are sent to customers. These internal failure costs include the costs of the direct materials and direct labor and manufacturing overhead in units that couldn't be fixed and had to be thrown out or scrapped, and the cost to rework units that are defective so that they can be sold. External failure costs occur if a defect is not detected until after the product has been sold. These external failure costs may include the costs to repair or replace defective units under warranties, as well as the cost of lawsuits from customers who were hurt by defective products, and the cost of lost future sales because customers don't like defective products. These internal failure and external failure costs are always non-value added. Based on this discussion, lost future sales after a customer finds a defect would be which type of quality cost? That's right. It would be an external failure cost because the goods have already gone out to the customer. The cost to test a product before shipment to customers would be which kind of quality cost? The cost to test the product is an appraisal cost. If any defects are found, the cost to fix them would be an internal failure cost. Here is an example of a cost of quality report for XYZ. We can see the amount that the firm spent on quality training and machine inspections and the total for prevention costs. We can also see the amount that the firm spent on materials inspections and product testing and the total appraisal costs. Here are the costs that the firm spent for units that had to be scrapped and the cost to rework defective units and the total internal failure costs, as well as the costs to handle customer complaints and make warranty repairs and an estimate of the sales that were lost due to defective products, and the total external failure costs. When we look at all 4 quality cost categories, we notice that the firm is spending a lot on non-conformance costs, and that the total quality costs are extremely high. What this report suggests to managers is that they should be spending more on prevention and appraisal costs, which should reduce the amount that they end up spending on internal failure and external failure costs, and should reduce the firm's total quality costs and improve customer satisfaction. This is the end of Chapter 19.